Hello, it's Pete again, back to review another film. This time I'm going to be doing a review of Zootropolis, which has just been released. It's a very, very interesting movie, and I just want to take a couple minutes to talk to you about it. A few years ago, Disney started to sort of be on a bit of a roll, going all the way back to sort of Princess and the Frog and films like that. Starting with that, and then since obviously we've had Wreck-It Ralph, we've had other films like Frozen, Tangled. They've really been hitting the stride with a really long string of strong Disney movies. Big Hero 6 being another one. You can see behind me on the shelf, you'll notice I have a lot of them on Blu-ray, and I'm a big animation fan. You can see there's Pixar postcards in the corner too, so I really love animation. I'm a fan, I am a practitioner of animation as well. I do stop motion animation, I do a bit of computer animation. I've been into animation for a very long time. So it's something I'm always interested to see. I always check out the latest releases, especially when Disney and Pixar are involved, whatever I can really. And Zootropolis is a really interesting one to go into because over the last couple of years or so, in fact more than that really, but we have seen, especially in the last few years, this kind of two essentially kinds of animated movies that are emerging now. The first kind is sort of more like the Minions, Despicable Me, Ice Age type movie where it's really just for children, young kids. There's not really a great deal of important themes or ideas being explored there. It's just fun for kids, and adults sort of come along to it, but also almost like sleeping through it essentially. There's nothing wrong with those kind of movies. I enjoy them a lot, but the other kind that seems to be emerging is more like the Lego Movie we had recently, and Inside Out, where you watch these films and you realise that they're not just for kids. They are for kids, but they've got deeper themes and ideas going on in there, and that's really what interests me about animation. I'm a great lover and enthusiast of it, and while I enjoy the silly side of it, I love it when there can be something more concrete and more interesting going on there. And Zootropolis is definitely one of those. Quite surprisingly so. I was surprised how much content there was here and how much subtext there was going on. Disney usually, when I think about it, don't usually have a lot of social commentary in their movies. That's usually missing from the majority of the back catalogue, which makes this particular film, Zootropolis, very, very... It could be like the most important film Disney have done for quite a while because it is going into a lot of social commentary, much more than the trailers showed, much more than I ever expected. This is a film that deals with racial tensions between people. It deals with stereotypes. It deals with all kinds of prejudices that people have. And to summarise it up, to start off with, it begins in a very fun, silly way, which had me laughing straight away, but it also immediately sets you in the tone for this movie where there's actually some good social commentary going on. And it's not just a case of it being rammed down your throat either. It's sort of, it's very organic to the film. Younger kids will maybe not get it, but it does have a good message for both adults and kids in here. And really it's all about the idea that this is set in a world where there's animals have evolved to be more civilized, but originally, back in the day, there were essentially two big types of animal. There's the predators and there's the prey. And you start with the beginning. It starts with the Judy Hopps, who's the main character of this movie. Immediately, she's this bunny who you see as a kid, and she has this dream of being a police officer, which in that world is still seen as a bit of a silly idea because she's classed as prey, and prey are usually not able to do those kind of roles. That's more sort of a predator job. So she is the first bunny who's ever wanted to be a police officer, and it starts with that, the Disney cliche by now of following your dream. She has this dream of being a police officer, and her parents kind of say to her, I don't think you can do it. So you start getting on her side straight away. She's very likable, very lovable, as a lot of these Disney heroes or heroines tend to be. And then it's following her story of becoming this police officer, going to Zootropolis, which is this place where she's heard is this amazing place where animals can be whatever they want to be. But when she gets there, she realises it's not as simple as that, and actually the dream of it is actually not what she was promised. And this is where it starts to become more interesting because you're getting still some similar Disney themes coming through, but a lot more interesting things again about how people are still prejudiced, people still have racial issues, people still within this world, even though predators and prey are sort of living in harmony, there's still tensions there. There's still aspects where people haven't totally embraced either. And the other character who comes into play very quick after Judy Hopps is the fox played by Nicholas Wilde. Of course, he's classed as a predator, and he's stereotypically seen as a sly fox who kind of you can't really trust. And again, initially, when you first meet him, he does live up to this stereotype. And when you get into the film, you realise there's a lot of depth here in that he's portraying a stereotype that has been forced on him because he feels he can't be anything else other than this fox. So the two characters have a lot of depth to them. The story as it goes is essentially a detective story following Judy Hopps around as she's trying to make her mark, because people still don't take her seriously as a police officer, even though she is now a police officer. Trying to track down these lost animals. So it's a sort of detective story of sorts, very well paced, very, very well done, and it's got some very funny bits in it that have me laughing a lot. There's one particular part which I don't want to say what it is because I don't like being one of these people who tell specific bits that are really funny, because then you're going to watch it and maybe be disappointed. But one particular scene that was homaging something that's very close to my heart, a film of mine that I really love, I found it extremely hilarious and funny. And I've also got a soft spot for cuddly animals and things like that. But the world building here is really interesting too. It's not just a simple, straightforward film. There's 14 different districts that are all Zootropolis is made up of. There's a tundra district, there's a rainforest part, and you only got to see very few of them, which makes me think there is potential here for seeing more and exploring more. But you really got the feeling this wasn't just cute, cuddly animals on screen. There was a very good idea behind it, and the kind of world building and character play that was going on here, along with the story, is exactly what I sort of wanted from Batman v Superman. It's doing all these things at once. It's showing that you can do it in a very coherent way, and it was quite breathtaking how well it was done. I don't want to go into any more spoilers really, but I can say in all honesty, it was an almost perfect Disney film for me. I mean, I expected it to be good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, if I'm honest. A lot of people were sort of cynical. I spoke to about this. The recent trailer got people interested, but the original trailer about a year ago, I was talking to were like, "Oh, Zootropolis, it doesn't really sound great. It sounds like it might be kind of a lame idea and a lame movie." But when you get into the actual nitty gritty of it, it was an extremely well done movie and it surpassed my expectations. I was personally looking forward to it. I thought it would be good because, as I said, Disney's on a hot streak right now, and it didn't look like this was going to break the trend. But I will say it was a heck of a lot better than I really thought it would be. And it is right up there with my very favourite Disney films now, there, in a very different way to Big Hero 6 or Frozen or Tangled. Just because normally you don't get Disney films that go into the social commentary like this does. Like, normally Disney films are very much interesting because of their fairy tale nature, and they're set very much outside of what's going on in the real world. This one is very much analogous to today's technology, and today's way of thinking, and ideas that are going on, and tensions that are occurring today, and people's attitudes that they have. I mean, it's essentially a film about equality as well, and that is at the heart of it, and that is still done in a very interesting way here. It's not as simple and straightforward as you think. The Judy Hopps character does have some flaws too, and she does have some, assumptions that she makes, like we all do of certain people, and it sort of underlines the fact that we all have a bit of learning to do in that way. And that's a great message for kids, and it's also still a great message for adults. There's plenty of adults who still don't really do what this movie is sort of suggesting is a good idea, and I think is certainly a good idea. So with that said, I'm going to give Zootopia a 10. It's really surprising. It's the first 10 I've given out of the year, and I don't feel that 10s necessarily mean for me it's a perfect movie. If I give something a 10 out of 10, it doesn't mean it's perfect, because no film is actually perfect. Each film is going to have little flaws, little problems with it. Someone will watch it. I mean, any film that you watch and think is a 10 out of 10, you can immediately tell there will be someone else somewhere who came out of it and thought it was a 1 out of 10. So a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean it's perfect, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it's warranted if a film does everything that I can conceivably think of as being good. If it has a good script, which this one does, a great story, good characters, interesting themes, it feels like they've really put a lot of thought into it. The pacing's good, I never got bored, I found it very, very funny, I found it very touching. There was nothing really about it that I could put as a negative. So I give it a 10. If I come out of a movie and I'm like, you know what, there was no issues with that in my mind, it's a 10. Now, will it be a 10 for you? Probably not. Maybe an 8, maybe a 7. But for me personally, speaking from my gut reaction, it's a 10 out of 10 film, which is completely unexpected. But it's a really, really, really good animated movie. I would advise everyone who's got reservations to chuck them out the door and watch it, because I think majority of people, particularly adults, will be surprised at how much is going on here and how much this film actually has to say. It's a very interesting message, not just for kids but adults as well. So yeah, that's my review of Zootropolis. Really, really good. I'll be surprised if there's a better animated film out this year, to be honest. It really has set the bar very, very high. I know we've got Finding Dory coming up in a bit. I've got some reservations about that, which I'll go into in another video, of course, because this is not talking about that film. But yeah, overall, 10 out of 10. I recommend people go and check it out, because hopefully you'll be as pleasantly surprised as I was with it. Right, that's my video review for Zootropolis. So I will see you again soon. Bye! Hello, it's Pete back again with another review. Today I'm going to be looking at Eddie the Eagle, which has just been released. It came out last Monday, sort of unawares. I knew this film was coming out at some point, but it sort of took me by surprise how quickly it came out. It came out on Easter Monday for some reason. So I got to go see it this weekend, so I'm just going to give you a quick review of it. So it stars Taron Egerton, who was previously in Kingsman, and it's also got Hugh Jackman in it, directed by Dexter Fletcher, which is an odd person to be directing a movie, but it's also produced by Matthew Vaughn, who of course did Kingsman, and he also did Kick-Ass as well. So just quick little bit of backstory for me. Eddie the Eagle is someone from my childhood who I've got quite fond recollections and memories of. I was never really into Winter Olympic sports or sports in general, but he was still someone who was kind of there in my childhood. I knew him as a sort of figure of fun, as a sort of slightly ridiculous character, and indeed he was a character that some people mocked and some people thought he was a bit ridiculous. I remember when even hearing someone said, "Oh, we're doing an Eddie the Eagle movie," there was someone who was like groaning about it when I first heard it. So he is still a character that some people don't and didn't take seriously and continue not to. So there will be certain people, I suppose, who are either turned off or turned on by the idea of even watching this film in the first place. I know in America it's not done great. I think it's come out and sort of bombed because I don't think Americans really know who he was. And they were probably marketing it more on the fact that Hugh Jackman was in it, but Taron Egerton's not a huge name yet, so he's not really going to be able to sell the movie. So yeah, I watched it yesterday, and I was actually very, very impressed with it. I thought it was an excellent feel-good movie. Taron Egerton was brilliant in it. It's definitely worth seeing it for his performance. It's his performance that really makes the movie work. It's a very sort of story-wise and structure-wise, you have seen it all before. There's nothing original. It's your classic underdog story that you get in most sports films about someone who is, struggling to make his way up. People don't take him seriously. He has to prove himself. I mean, this is good because obviously it was based on a real guy, and you do get some insight into just what he had to go through and how dedicated he was. As I was saying, he was a figure of fun as far as I knew him, but the film does show just the risks he was going to and the sort of things that he was up against, and he was up against a lot. And while he's always a humorous character and you always sort of warm to him in that way, there is still a serious undertone that this guy tried really hard and knew exactly what the risks were, and the risks were for him extremely bad. I mean, when you watch the film you realise, yeah, he could have died doing this stuff, and it didn't put him off. He just kept on doing it, and more than anything it's just this story of a man who will keep going no matter what gets thrown in his way. And while something that, again, we've often seen it before, the way Taron Egerton approaches the role just makes you really care about the character, and he has this sort of great natural charisma he also had in Kingsman, which, if you haven't watched that, in that he plays a sort of chavvy character at the beginning, and not really being predisposed to liking those kind of characters in films normally, he won me over in like a couple of minutes. He's such great charisma and very likeable, and he's just as likeable in this. But the thing about this is he's playing a completely different character as well. I mean, in Kingsman it's almost a polar opposite, really. In Kingsman he's playing a sort of slightly cocky, chavvy guy whose heart's in the right place, but he's sort of a bit full of it. And with this he's playing like a very geeky, shy guy who doesn't really know what to say to women and is quite awkward, and it does have that very awkward British thing going for it. He also isn't someone who, if you know what Eddie Eagle looks like and you knew it was him playing him, you wouldn't necessarily think he's a good choice. Like, he doesn't visually look like Eddie Eagle, but that doesn't really matter because he really, really sells you on his performance of it. And he actually does, physicality-wise, he sticks out his jaw and he tries to mimic exactly what he looked like, whilst it not feeling like a caricature either. That's the other thing. It's not, even though he is very good at doing the humour and things like that, it doesn't ever feel like he's pretending to be a guy or he's doing it too much or over the top. He just manages to always ride that line of it being believable, being fun, just generally being likeable. He's such a likeable guy that you really, really want him to succeed. And this film, it has the classic moments you have in all these kind of films. It has like montage sequence. It has like a slow build to the end of the film, and flashbacks to his life of people telling him he can't do things. So it's got all those familiar elements. Like I said, there's nothing original here, but it is a film that works. It puts a smile on my face, and I was really, really rooting for the guy and really rooting for him to succeed. The cast of other people around him not as good as him. Hugh Jackman, for what he has to do in the movie, is good. There's some good banter with him. Hugh Jackman plays. He's like the sort of coach. He's kind of the mirror to what Eddie the Eagle is, because he used to be a really like a prodigy when he was a lot younger, and then sort of messed it up. But he could have been an Olympian, and he messed it up. Whereas Eddie the Eagle has got no real talent, not any of the talent that Hugh Jackman used to have, but he's got the determination to live this dream and to be an Olympian. And that is really what the film's about. It's about trying, not about necessarily coming first. This guy, he knew he wasn't going to be able to compete with the other people doing it. He just wanted his chance to go and do what he could. And there were so many people who were stopping him from doing that. He just doesn't let it put him off. There's a scene where he goes into like a room with all these other Olympic athletes who've been trained in this for a long time, and they're saying like, we started doing this when we were 4 or 5. How old are you? And he's like, well, I'm 22. I started doing this yesterday. So they just laugh at him. They just think there's no way this guy can even do a jump, never mind compete in the Olympics. And of course, as the film goes through, it ebbs and flows, and you sort of understand what he had to do to get there, and it's an amazing thing that he accomplished. He accomplished some really great things, and did become a very well loved character. I mean, a lot of the other characters in the movie who were more technically qualified and better than him haven't stood the test of time. People aren't still talking or remembering them like they are remembering Eddie the Eagle, because he did something that really transcended at the time, and the film really does tap into that. It's got a great feeling for the 80s as well. The soundtrack's really good. It's got this sort of synth pop soundtrack which works really well, and it did really make me took me back to that time of being a kid at the time in the 80s, where there's a sort of optimism about that you could do things, which doesn't really happen in a lot of movies now. So yeah, I think Dexter Fletcher, although not one of my favourite actors, to be honest, he did a decent job of directing. He's not an exceptional director, but he did everything that you needed to do in a movie like this, and I'm guessing this was a bit of a passion project for him, because this is the only film he's directed as far as I'm aware. So yeah, he did a good job with the direction. He did a good job of making it feel like it was an 80s movie. He built up the pace properly. He established all the things that you need to have established for you in a movie like this, showing exactly the threats and the perils that he was facing, whilst mixing that with bits of comedy, making it light. That was really the best things about it, was the performance and the direction. The other things that sort of dragged the movie down a little bit, like I said originally, it was a bit basic in terms of the setup. You knew exactly where the film was going, and a few of the other side characters were very one note. Like his parents, like Keith Allen, who plays Eddie the Eagle's dad. He was very like straight down the line the whole film, saying, you don't want to be doing this, you want to be getting a normal job, because he's a plasterer, and he's saying to him, his whole life he's saying to him, you're no good doing this, you need to be doing a plasterer's job, you need to do a normal job that you can do to earn some money. And while like that's a quality you see in a lot of characters in these kind of films, he just was very, very one note with this line all the way through the movie, and it felt like certain characters were sort of made more simplified just to sort of be a barrier to him, like his dad and some of the people who were like organising who went and didn't go to the Olympics. They came off as very one-dimensional characters, basically, who were just there to kind of get in his way and something for him to sort of beat, when really there was probably more going on there than that. At the same time as you might be annoyed that they were trying to stop him, they were also considering the fact that he could kill himself doing this, and that it maybe wasn't the safest thing to go and do. So the movie does paint them out to be sort of more villainous, I think, than they possibly were. Again, I don't know the history of it. So those are the only things really dragging the movie down. Overall, I'd still say it was a good movie to go watch. It's a good family movie as well. There's nothing in it, barring one kind of a bit odd scene. There's nothing really in it that's not suitable for kids. It's only a PG, so it's not got anything really violent or anything like that in it. But yeah, it's a good family-friendly movie to watch. Good feel-good movie. I could highly recommend it. So yeah, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. And mainly for Taron Egerton. He's the one who really makes this movie work, and it's worth watching again for his performance, because he's showing more and more through his roles, especially through this and Kingsman. If you haven't watched Kingsman, by the way, go and watch it, because he's brilliant in that. It's a great spy action movie, far better than Spectre or Mission Impossible 5 in my opinion. So if you haven't watched Kingsman, check that out. It's out on Blu-ray now. And if you have watched Kingsman, you already know the guy I'm on about. It's definitely worth checking out his performance here, because it really does make me think this guy's got a lot of talent and a lot of range. He could go on and do great things, so it's worth checking out for him. And of course, if you're a fan of Eddie the Eagle and you remember him fondly from the 80s like I do, it's also worth checking out for that reason as well. Okay, so that's Eddie the Eagle, an 8 out of 10, and definitely worth checking out if you want a nice, good, feel-good movie. I will be back with another review soon. Bye!